With the very successful season Vladimir Guererro Jr. is having, there are some people that believe Vlad isn't a top 3 player in the AL. What do we think? Let's discuss that today.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Love that. I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on TikTok, Instagram, at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you haven't subscribed here to the podcast on YouTube, do it. Helps us out. Keeps us at the top of your guys' page. And it just, you get notified every time we post a video, and you can even hit that little bell icon at the top, and it'll notify you if we go live or a short gets posted. Some information comes out, and we keep the YouTube pretty up to date, so it's there for you. Lot to go over on today's episode, Carter. It has been just jam-packed Blue Jays news constantly, it seems like. Even for a team that's really not in the playoff hunt, there is a absolute ton of news. We're going to talk about where does Vlad rank in the AL for every player. Is he a top 3 player in the AL? There's been some tweets posted. I had some thoughts. Carter had some thoughts. We're going to get into it. Then we're going to go through some of the players that have been traded from the Blue Jays at the deadline. How are they doing now? How are they stacking up? What do these trades look like? Sort of a while out of the trade deadline. As well, we got a ton of Blue Jays news. Davis Schneider, actually, post-episode that we just did yesterday, talked about his performance and had to answer some questions and some pretty difficult ones, I think, for a player not doing so hot. So, Carter, just before we sort of get into the whole Vlad stuff, the Blue Jays 6-game winning streak comes to an end. 5-game if you want to say that the one doesn't count because it should have been played whenever. To me, it's a 6-game winning streak. Come to an end. How do you feel about it?
It's sad. The season's over, unfortunately. The Toronto Blue Jays were they had a 99% chance to make the playoffs for today's game or yesterday's game, and then now it's down to 2% again. So it's unfortunate for the Toronto Blue Jays. That's why I liked last episode. I think I was pretty positive, and I still will continue to be positive. It doesn't really matter with the Toronto Blue Jays. If they somehow make the playoffs, like realistically, I think Fangraphs has them at like 0.3%, and that's actually what they should be at because there's almost no way. But again, Toronto Blue Jays play good baseball. I want to be positive about it. I want to give the guys their flowers. Again, I don't want to be a miserable fan. Just hate watching the Toronto Blue Jays because that's a lot of time to put into your Blue Jays and not have a lot of fun watching them. But it's obviously unfortunate. Yusei Rodriguez, not a great day. He's been struggling a little bit as of late. So that's what makes this starting pitching a little bit of a battle going down the stretch a little bit more interesting. You have Bowden Francis being debatably the best pitcher on the team during that stretch. And you have Yusei Rodriguez. Again, this season has a lot of ups and downs, but Yusei Rodriguez is definitely in a down right now. It just didn't look great. His velo has been down for the last couple starts. Again, the command's kind of going out the window here. This could be a fatigue thing. He didn't pitch in 2023, but we'll get way more into this. Just overall, again, not the greatest game. Jarren Duran just seems to be the greatest player of all time right now, hitting another home run again in this game. He's a fun player to watch. There's a couple guys on this Red Sox team that still are interesting to watch. It's just their pitching sucks. They have a couple guys that just completely fell off at the plate. Devers didn't play in that last game. They still got the win. That was another interesting thing. But we're just taking it day by day with this Toronto Blue Jays baseball, picking off the positives and just trying not to get too emotionally down if the Toronto Blue Jays lose.
Yeah, and you know what? We don't want to go fully in depth on every single game. If something happens that's shocking, we'll cover it. But right now, there's so much other news that's going on in Toronto Blue Jays land right now that it's sort of at the forefront. Something that I sort of wanted to bring up here, and this is the tweet I saw that got sort of a lot of hate or a lot of backlash online. This is from Gary Sheffield Jr. He is the host of Yankees Unloaded on YouTube. Some media guy runs a podcast for the Yankees, so I've never heard of it. But they seem like they do a good job, so give them props. And I don't think necessarily this take is so outrageous. I just think that some of the comments that came back, I think that sparked a little bit of a conversation. So good on this Gary Sheffield Jr. who put out this tweet. it did start some debate online. I think that's always a good thing around some of these best players in baseball. So he says, obviously, Vlad Guerrero Jr. isn't even a top 3 player in the AL, but he needs to pretend he's a lion in the mirror to get the version of him we're getting this year, which is objectively still an insanely great player. Whatever works, do it. Think it. I think that's a pretty solid tweet from him. So I got to give him props there. I didn't know his content coming out of this, but it made me check this out because it started a pretty healthy debate online. And I think some people are going back and forth and made it fun. So Carter, to me, let's start this out here before we really dive into it. Do you believe that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a top 3 player in the AL right now?
So yeah, for me, this question could be addressed from multiple directions. You could be like literally right now in the last like 3 weeks, if you want to analyze who has been the best player over this last little bit. If you're talking about who is hot right now, again, this could be the season. Could be if you're going into next season, you want to start a franchise. Who would you want on your team? So I'm just going to ask you, like, which way do you think he was trying to take this? He's thinking just like right now, if you want to start a franchise, saying after the All-Star break, like which direction are we going with this question?
I think if you look at it from today, if you had to pick the guy playing for you tomorrow, who are you picking? Because I don't think we're talking about building a franchise around. I mean, yes, if you want to have that debate, that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother thing, because then you got to take into account injuries, their longevity, how many games they play, the position they play. I think right now, who is the best player that you could have on your team tomorrow if you wanted to?
Okay, so with this question, there's really 2 guys that come to my mind, and initially it's Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been unbelievable since the All-Star game, but you look at Bobby Witt, you look at Aaron Judge. Again, these 3 players are very different. Vladdy and Aaron Judge obviously being more similar than the Bobby Witt comparison to those 2. But I don't think you can take Vladdy over Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge just on a monster tear right now. This guy might hit 60 home runs this season. It's a guy that for me you can't really pass up. So I think Aaron Judge is better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now, and Bobby Witt as well. Bobby Witt he's hitting the ball all over the ballpark. I'm taking Bobby Witt, but other than that, you get Juan Soto would be my third debate with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Honestly, right now I'm taking Vladdy with how hot he's been after the All-Star break. So I do have him in the top 3. The guys, you look at OPS, you look at home runs, you look at hits, you look at a lot of these offensive categories. He's top 2 in most of these categories, top 1, and then top 3 in some too. And it's all just comparative with Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt, and Vladdy really since the All-Star break. I think if you really break down the stats, Judge would probably be number 1, Vladdy would be number 2, and then Bobby Witt would be number 3. Vladdy has been on an insanity run since the All-Star break. Obviously, even since he cut his hair, which I believe was on around that June 26th time as well. So he's been insane for the last 2 months. He's statistically had one of the best seasons of his career. 2021 with the home run numbers obviously being a little bit better. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been hitting the ball hard all over the ballpark this season. I think he just slightly edges out Juan Soto just over the more recency bias. I think he's had a better post All-Star break than Juan Soto has. So I don't think it's the craziest thing to not have Vladdy in your top 3 again. If you have Juan Soto in there instead of Vladdy, I can see the argument, but top 5 for me, no doubt, of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So not the most insane tweet I've ever seen, but definitely a cool discussion point with how hot some of the players in the AL have been over this last little bit of stretch here.
Yeah, and I got to give him props. I wasn't trying to be rude or anything to the guy that put out the tweet. I think it was a pretty healthy discussion, and you very rarely see that on Twitter. So props to him. I think it got some people chatting. And I agree with you. I'm a little bit more on the side of I fully believe that Vlad is a top 3 player. I think at any point you could take Vladimir Guerrero Jr. over. Again, the way Bobby Witt plays compared to Aaron Judge and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are very different. I think Bobby Witt, if I was, again, if we have the discussion on who would you build a franchise around, Bobby Witt might be my number 1 choice. But it's an interesting question. But I think overall, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is my number 3 right now as well. I don't necessarily believe that Juan Soto is. I think they're close, but I don't think it's close enough for me to really have a healthy debate about Juan Soto. I think I more so compare Vlad to Aaron Judge, and I just want to go over some of their stats over the last 30 games. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 114 at-bats, 47 hits, 9 home runs, 23 RBIs. He's batting a .412 with an on-base percentage of .500 and a slugging of .798. Now, I just sort of want to move on here to Aaron Judge's. I mean, crazy statistics from Vlad. I don't want to brush over that, but I sort of want to go through the 3 guys here. Aaron Judge, 107 at-bats, 44 hits, 16 home runs, 33 RBIs. He's batting a 411 with an on-base percentage of 547 and a slugging of 925, which is massive. I mean, the home run numbers from Judge in the last 30 days, everything from Judge in the last 30 days is just ridiculous. And so I do understand that part of it. The next guy, of course, being Bobby Witt. Where sort of does his stats line up here with the other two guys? 119 at-bats, 42 hits, 9 home runs, 24 RBIs. He's batting a 353 with an on-base percentage of 426 and a slugging of 689. So over the last 30 days, I think it's pretty safe to say that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been better than Bobby Witt. I think if you're having the conversation on the recency, you might put Vlad debatably number 2, even though I think number 3 is the proper spot for him. Going at 10, looking at Juan Soto here, Carter. 113 at-bats, 28 hits, 12 home runs, 24 RBI with a batting average of 248, an on-base percentage of 397, and a slugging of 619. Again, the home run numbers are great, but the rest of the stats don't necessarily jump off the page when you're comparing him to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I think it's an interesting tweet that he put out, but I think if you were to ask the majority of player or the majority of fans, I think they have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at that number 3 spot. I don't necessarily believe that there's a huge debate between the Juan Soto and the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for that for the 3rd spot.
Yeah, like especially when you go over those stats, it looks pretty cut and dry. Again, it's streaky. There's still a lot of games left in the season. But the way I look at this is, say you're in a game situation and you're just kind of using the eye test, not necessarily even the eye test, just a little bit of a gut feeling. Who are you most scared of when they come up to the plate right now? Aaron Judge came up to the plate. I don't know if there's anyone in the league that I would be more scared of to absolutely launch on my franchise. Maybe Shohei Ohtani's in there, but we're focusing on the AL. Bobby Witt, that guy's going to do damage, whether it's going to be a good at-bat. He's probably going to foul off some good pitches, maybe hit a gap, and then steal a million bases on you. He'd probably be my number 2. For me, when it's Juan Soto, you look at Vladdy, you look at guys like Gunnar Henderson, maybe Rafi Devers. For me, it's Vladdy. Vladdy would scare me the most out of all those players. He would come up, and he's been hitting a lot of home runs recently, hitting for a lot of power, having very productive at-bats. So in that scenario, with that gut feeling test, I think Vladdy would have to be your number 3. Again, when we look at it from a full season review, maybe you think Juan Soto's having a better season with the home run numbers. You can look at Gunnar Henderson, players like that, Rafael Devers, who has very similar numbers to Vladdy. More of a debate for that, but since we are looking at it, like more so post All-Star break, I would say I think Vladdy's your number 3. Vladdy has been so fun to watch. I wouldn't say one of the only things, but one of the major things for sure that has kept us, I know, interested and engaged in the Toronto Blue Jays. So obviously, if you've been watching post All-Star break with the bullpen, with some of these starting pitching stretches that we've had, even though recently it's been pretty good, there's been a lot of ups and downs, to say the least, this season. So with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., it's such a blessing to have him on this team, and that's why he should be paid like a top 5 player in the AL, because he is a top 5 player in the AL. Absolutely love to see it. The only other debate you can have is that you look at Bobby Witt playing shortstop, you look at Vladdy playing first base. Probably a little bit more premium of a position with Bobby Witt rather than Vladdy. It's probably easier to find a first baseman. Then with the outfield, like Aaron Judge does play center field a lot of the time. I'm not sure if he's the greatest center fielder of all time. He is a good fielder, just not the fastest guy, doesn't have the best range out there. So again, is he a true center fielder? Probably more set for a right or left fielder. But again, that's a debate that you can put into this debate. But with their fielding skill, you compare Vladdy, you compare Aaron Judge. It's not crazy different, I wouldn't say. So I think I'm confident with Vladdy in that number 3 spot.
Yeah, a lot of good points there, Carter. And I think I'm going to leave the conversation here. And we want to hear what you guys think in the comments as well. Let us know, where does Vlad rank in the AL out of all the players? Is he a top 3 player for you? We want to hear it. And leave us the reasons why. Maybe we'll go over them and we'll try to get back to you, as many of you guys as possible. But I'm going to leave it here. This is the last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll hit a quick break. And we'll get into the traded players evaluations. This is all I got to say. Give the man the money.
Take care of all your vehicular maintenance needs with our partner, eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Whether it's a new spoiler, new brakes, an alternator, or you just want to deck out your ride, eBay Motors will have everything you need. They're super easy to deal with, very knowledgeable, and their experts give you great advice that is specific to your needs. So to keep your ride or die alive, you can go to eBay Motors and go to ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit, only available for U.S. customers. Today's episode is also sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. For this game coming up, obviously I have the Boston Red Sox again. And I always talk about this. Haven't talked about it as much recently, but you got to ride the hot hand. Who has been hot recently on the Toronto Blue Jays? Look at Vladimir Guererro Jr. Dalton Varsho has been very good recently. And then if I can get a Will Wagner bet, I'm obviously going to place that as well. So I get more than for all of them at 1.5 bases. And I also took Vladimir Guerrero Jr. more than at 7.0 fantasy points. So if you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download Prize Picks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. It's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Sorry, big guy. Quick on the trigger there. Quick on the trigger. Anyway, let's get into some trading the players evaluations. All the guys from the trade deadline that the Blue Jays sort of got rid of. How are they doing now? Carter, I want to throw it to you. There's one guy in particular I know that you sort of brought up to me that you wanted to talk about, and we brought him up on I can't remember if it was yesterday's episode or the one before that. The wild pitch machine, Trevor Richards. Ay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him. The guy gets DFA'd by the Los Angeles Angels, the Minnesota Twins. We just played the Los Angeles Angels. Not sure why I went there, but the Minnesota Twins DFA Trevor Richards. Not the greatest stint, obviously. That's just a good trade. You go back, Trevor Richards serves his time like 3 weeks with the Minnesota Twins, and we get some prospects in return. That being Jay Harry, that was probably the one prospect I was the least high on. But again, you get something for Trevor Richards. You can't really complain. We'll see how Jay Harry does turn out because right now the Twins gave up nothing. Got nothing and gave up Jay Harry. So that's a win for the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously. But we'll get into Trevor Richards. Yeah, the wild pitch machine. Just it's not great. Had like 7 wild pitches in 13 innings for the Minnesota Twins. It's not going to play. But you look at I'll just go over some surface line stats here. So yeah, over 13 innings pitched. He had a 4.15 ERA, a 1.46 WHIP, 13 strikeouts, had 6 earned runs. Again, not the worst thing you're going to see from Trevor Richards. Again, he kind of did that on the Jays as well. Just when he puts up a stinker, it's really bad. He probably gives up a meatball right down the middle. That thing's probably launched 460 feet into the moonlight at night. Again, it's kind of what the experience of Trevor Richards, unfortunately. Again, when he was on the Jays, we should have knew what we were getting ourselves into with him. A lower leverage guy you can throw out in the 5th, 6th inning, can get you out of the odd jam, but not a guy that you want to be throwing probably in the 8th or 9th inning. He's a serviceable MLB reliever, but for a team contending for the playoffs, you can't afford to have those 3-4 inning stinkers just completely ruin a game for you. So I guess not the greatest tenure with the Minnesota Twins, but thank you, Trevor Richards, for Jay Harry.
Yeah, and again, the trade was sort of a whatever, nothing burger, but at the end of the day, I mean, the Blue Jays did make a move, and they sold off sort of for nothing, like you said. So whatever. It sort of was fine with me. One guy that I think we called out for possibly seeing regression was Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. How is he doing now? I've got his stats here from playing with Pittsburgh, so I just want to go over that. Of course, we got Charles McAdoo, who we're very excited about. I hope that we get to see him a little bit. This is Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's stats so far this season with Pittsburgh. 23 games played. He's struck 94 at-bats, 22 hits. He's got 4 doubles, 2 triples, 1 home run, 6 RBIs. He struck out 21 times, 3 stolen bases. He's batting .234 with an on-base percentage of .265, a slugging of .351, an OPS of .616. It's been a regression, and I think that's what all Blue Jays fans sort of saw coming. I think we got the best of what we were going to get out of IKF. And the trade looks great. So I think this was a fantastic move by the Blue Jays. And I think this whole sort of trade deadline, looking back, was a major success, especially how this team has performed with some of the new guys that have been called up, i.e. Will Wagner. So that's great to see. Carter, moving on. Who's the next guy you got for us?
It's a guy that I wanted to compare to IKF with those similar stats. Just going quickly into IKF. Again, that's why you sell high on these players. You look at IKF, his career averages. Guy that just simply was outperforming his career averages by a substantial mark. And that's a guy when you're in the Toronto Blue Jays situation, you probably want to move on from. If you were trying to make a run, you keep IKF, obviously. But in the position they were in, you get Charles McAdoo. That is a huge win for the Toronto Blue Jays. He has looked absolutely insane in the minor leagues. OPS being about 950, him launching balls into orbit has been really fun to watch. But looking at Kevin Kiermaier, this is a guy that, offensively speaking, was very tough to watch with the Toronto Blue Jays. This season, anyway, going back to 2023, actually had a very productive offensive season. Not exactly something that we were expecting, and that's what led to this big contract that he ended up getting. But looking at Kevin Kiermaier with the Los Angeles Dodgers, actually playing some decent baseball for what the Dodgers gave up in Ryan Yarbrough. But looking at his batting average, hitting 243 and on base of 282, slugging a 405. That's good for a 687 OPS, which is better than IKF. His OPS plus with the Dodgers is 92, so it's just below league average. Has a home run, a few RBIs as well. A guy that's just, if you can provide literally anything for you at the plate, that 240 average, he did that with the Toronto Blue Jays, probably would have been okay with it, honestly. Yeah, you don't really need the home run power from Kevin Kiermaier because he's going to provide you that Gold Glove defense, and that's what he has been doing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Well, one unfortunate thing with that trade for the Dodgers is you gain Kevin Kiermaier, a Blue Jay, but you lose another Blue Jay in Kevin Biggio. So why not to come in for, or why not to leave for the other to come in? They're definitely doing a lot better with Kevin Kiermaier. Obviously, more of a premium position to play with center field, that he's going to provide good defense. When you have a lineup with like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Shohei Ohtani, you probably don't need Kevin Kiermaier to hit many home runs, and that's probably not something he's going to do with that lineup. You need to provide good defense, a guy that's going to be one of the best defensive substitutions in the league for that team. So good trade by them. But with Kevin Kiermaier, yeah, just one of those things that I'm never going to prey on Kevin Kiermaier's downfall. I mean, congrats to him for having some success in Los Angeles. Probably a lot easier to play for that team, especially with how their season is going. And then not as much pressure for Kevin Kiermaier to perform, like I said, with how strong that lineup is. But how you feel about Kevin Kiermaier and his start with the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Yeah, you know what? It's good for him. That's sort of where I want to leave it. I'm a huge Kevin Kiermaier fan. I always will be. I loved his tenure with the Blue Jays, and I'm not going to say anything bad on him. He's doing what he was traded to do, right? So at the end of the day, it is what it is. I want to move on to a guy with that we had a lot of ups and down conversation about, and that's Justin Turner. Justin Turner, I mean, he's only played 22 games with the Mariners. I mean, 73 at bats. He's batting 205 with an on-base percentage of 310, a slugging of 260, and an OPS of 570. He has one home run. This is a guy that you sort of knew. You knew what you were getting. You sort of knew that the risk that they were taking. Right? He's a very, very streaky hitter. And that's exactly what they saw from him with the Blue Jays. He went really hot, then really, really cold, and then he started to heat back up and then went cold again. And sure enough, he's not playing very well back in one of his cold stretches. So again, for what the Blue Jays gave away, it was just an amazing trade deadline.
Yeah, it's for a guy that's RJ Schreck, who is mashing in Double-A, another guy that's been very good since we've gotten him. You look at the prospects and what we were saying around the trade deadline. So, you're probably not going to see a lot of these guys for an extended period of time. So far, we've seen Will Wagner, we've seen Joey Lopavito, we might see Jake Bloss, and we're seeing Charles McAdoo and RJ Schreck absolutely rake in the minor leagues. So again, you're not necessarily seeing them with the major league team quite yet, but there's been a lot of positives from our prospects that were received in this deadline. So it's been a pretty fun stretch, especially when you think that could have been watching Justin Turner at bats. You could have been watching Kevin Kiermaier still have at bats for his team, but instead we're watching Barger, Lopavito, Will Wagner, guys like that. Definitely a lot more fun to watch young talent than it is to watch aging players. So interesting there. Other than that, there's really only one more player I really want to get into. So I think you probably know who it is. And it's one of the pitchers that we gave up at this deadline. So I'll go into the other ones if you want to finish it off with Kikuchi there. So I'm just going to quickly go over this. Shout out to Nate Pearson, a guy that obviously did not start great with the Chicago Cubs. Hit somebody in the face. That's never how you wanna start your tenure with another team. But looking again quickly over his stat line here: 11 in the third innings, 2.38 ERA with a .79 WHIP, 10 strikeouts, only 3 earned runs. Nate Pearson has flashes. He showed flashes. He showed flashes on the Toronto Blue Jays pretty much all season. He can have runs where he is a very good relief pitcher. When you're throwing 99 and 100, you can even touch 101. That's going to be effective. Even if you do have some command issues, you can be wildly effective, and that sometimes is Nate Pearson. But congrats to him for his 10 years so far with the Chicago Cubs. Danny Jansen's one guy that's, again, kind of doing just what Danny Jansen does. Low average, 233 OPS of almost 700 at 699, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. That's just Danny Jansen's kind of what you expect from him. Nothing crazy going on there. They have Connor Wong there as well, who's a very good hitting catcher. So Jano's probably there more so for defense. And then this one surprised me. Yimi Garcia, 9 innings pitched, 6 ERA, 1.22 WHIP with 7 strikeouts, 6 earned runs. So out of everyone that we traded away, I would say Yimi Garcia is probably doing the worst out of everyone, which is surprising because he was probably the second biggest piece that we traded at this deadline, other than this guy who I'm going to give over to you. But I'm not sure. I haven't watched a lot of Mariners games. Not sure what's going on with Yimi Garcia over there. But thankfully, I guess he's not doing with their Toronto Blue Jays. But I'll throw it back over to you for the man of the hour, I guess you could say, Yusei Kikuchi and his stretch with the Houston Astros.
Yeah, a guy that, obviously me and you both were sad to see go. I think we were huge Yusei Kikuchi fans. It was a tough one, but the trade was absolutely electric for the Blue Jays, and we thought, the Astros got absolutely shelled.
Saying
Turns
that,
out
there was a lot of people hating on Yusei Kikuchi for his first couple starts with the Astros. Still pitched great. It's just when you give that trade, it's going to be hard to walk into a building where a lot of fans aren't happy with the prospects you gave up. But he's been very good, and that's what we were saying when it happened. You said you might have gave up a lot for this guy, but he is going to be electric. He's going to pitch his heart out, and he is definitely doing that for the Astros team. You can't say that they got worse at the trade deadline with their MLB team. Obviously, the prospect system took a hit, but I just wanted to throw that in there before you did the analyzation of Yusei Kikuchi. It's our guy.
Yeah.
He's an effective pitcher in the MLB.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going, right? Everybody talked about how badly the Houston Astros got shelled for this trade. But, man, I don't think they expected Yusei Kikuchi to be the absolute dog. And sure enough, we all knew that. Toronto Blue Jays fans knew that Yusei Kikuchi had that in him. So let's go over his stats here playing with the Houston Astros. He is 2-0 right now in win-loss. He's got an ERA of 2.89. He has he's pitched 28 innings with 18 hits given up and only 9 earned runs against, with a average against of 175 and a whip of 1. That is very, very solid from Yusei Kikuchi. And this is a strong piece the Houston Astros need if they want to make a push this season. Yusei Kikuchi can do everything. He can be a starter if you need him to, or he can be very effective out of the bullpen as a lefty. So I think the Houston Astros really, looking back, I don't think necessarily lost this trade as badly as all the fans said. I think they needed to make a move to make a push to try to win the World Series this year. And I think Yusei Kikuchi is a piece that definitely bolsters them.
For sure. And they don't need Yusei Kikuchi to be this ace. He doesn't have to be the number one pitcher. You have guys like Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, obviously Ronald Polanco's there too. You need Yusei Kikuchi to be a piece that can give you some depth, maybe come out of the bullpen, maybe even start a game in the playoffs for you. He might be the third starter for the Houston Astros. But this guy, it gives you a little bit more leeway. You have more opportunity if you want to fluctuate your bullpen. You want to throw guys in different situations. Yusei Kikuchi is going to be able to give you some velocity from the left side. So again, you're looking at this trade, maybe you look at it from 5 years. Again, it really depends how these prospects turn out. Prospects, again, with Joey Lopervito having some MLB service time now, obviously Will Wagner as well. But still, they have shown no consistent success, at least in the MLB. These guys are still young players. Who knows? Again, you got to hope that at least one of these players work out for the Toronto Blue Jays. But you'll get Yusei Kikuchi. He's already established himself in the league. You know what you're going to get from him. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get from guys like Jake Bloss, Joey Lopervito, and Will Wagner. Just got to hope. It's tough to evaluate the trade right now, considering it happened like a month ago. I mean, there's still a lot of time for things to happen. So right now, I think both teams can be pleased with what they have gotten so far from the trade in that trade deadline.
Yeah, Carter. And you know what? There's so much more to talk about. And we're going to probably take a look back at this again when the season comes to an end and see which pieces helped which teams and who didn't and who won, who lost. And we're probably going to be debating some of these for the next few years to come. But in saying that, we're going to take a quick break. We want to get into a couple Blue Jays news that we have. There's been so much stuff that's been coming out. A little bit of a sort of we posted our episode about Davis Schneider and what's been going wrong. What is the answer? And sure enough, every Blue Jays outlet, as soon as we posted that, was like, "Yep, let's talk about Davis Schneider as well." So the Score did an article talking to Davis, and so we'll get into some of his quotes right after this. Today's episode brought to you by Liquid IV. You guys know I love Liquid IV. It is my go-to Sunday cure. Doesn't matter if I'm, out playing baseball, a little bit dehydrated, or I had a long night and just sort of need to get back into the swing of things. They have this new popsicle firecracker flavor, summertime favorite. It's going to be great, and honestly, I'm probably not going to stop drinking it into the winter. It is the absolute best hydration drink I know. Powered by Live HydroSense, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Time. As you guys know, Game Time is one of my favorite apps. It is just the best. We are going down to Minneapolis just actually this weekend to watch the Blue Jays play Minnesota. So it's going to be a blast. We've bought our tickets through Game Time because why wouldn't I? When they have their flash deals, their zone deals, their last minute deals, which I won't get to use because we purchased the tickets already, but they're great as well. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks and Dodgers as well. So if you're a Diamondbacks and Dodgers fan, make sure you guys check that out as well. Game Time, like I said, Game Time Picks is a great option for you guys. The other thing is the seat views. I love watching, being able to see where I'm sitting. It is my sort of biggest draw to this app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDO and MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So, Carter, I didn't get to mention it in the last segment, but make sure you guys go check out Locked On MLB. Host Paul Sullivan has all the major storylines covered. Sully, he's just anything that happens in the MLB, if it's a big storyline, he's going to have it covered. So make us your first listen, but then make sure you guys go make Locked On MLB your second listen. Carter, in saying that, I want to get into this Davis Schneider little quote here that I got because there's a few interesting things here, right? I don't think Davis isn't a stupid guy. He knows that he's not playing great, but he did have some interesting things to say. I feel like I deserve to be here. I feel like I showed I can handle it. It's a matter of how long these slumps last. I feel like that makes good hitters good hitters. Everyone goes through slumps. It's a matter of how long it is. I'm not playing well. I know that. It's just a matter of working hard and trying to get back to where I was. So an interesting quote there, Carter. I don't necessarily know how much I like him talking about that. It's a hitter slump. It happens, blah, blah, blah. I think for me, I don't know if it's just a me thing. I don't want to hear you say that. I want to just see you work through it and be able to get out of it. You talking about a slump makes you think that you're just going to wait it out. Even though I don't think that's what he meant by it, but it's just sort of, I think maybe we'll put a sour taste in a little bit of Blue Jays fans' mouths. What do you take away from that?
Yeah, he used the word slump. The first thing I thought of is that is quite the slump you got going there, man. Like that's quite the length of a slump, especially like if you go through like his last year, at the end of last year's stats where he was like 0 for 27, I'll give him that. Like that's a slump. If you say like, oh, I'm going to work out of that, just got to wait it out sort of thing, I'd be more so okay with that. But when you've been hitting like 130 for the last 2 months, it's not exactly what I want to hear. Again, like these things do happen in baseball. I said this on our last episode that baseball is very streaky. Like these things do happen. Like you're going to have months where you're going to hit 350. You'll have months where you'll probably hit like 180. It is what it is. But with Davis Schneider, again, he's going to benefit from way more playing time. I'm not going to take too much away from these comments. It is nice that he acknowledges that he's not playing the greatest baseball. And again, I said that on our last episode as well. out of everybody in the world, Davis Schneider knows that he's not playing his caliber of baseball right now. He's probably being the hardest on himself about that, right? He's not being like, oh, okay, I'll just go there. Maybe I'll just try a little bit differently this time. Like, no, he's looking at his stuff. He's looking at tape. He's reviewing film, trying to tweak some things. He's probably tried a bunch of things already. Just something's got to click, and something eventually will work for Davis Schneider. I just think it will click a little bit faster if he does get sent down to AAA and does have the opportunity to play a little bit more with the Bisons. But again, when had a minor league career and you've worked so hard to get to the major leagues, you're not going to want to roll over. You're not going to want to get sent down, because it is a very big accomplishment to get sent up to the major league team. So with Davis Schneider, probably there is some pieces in him that doesn't want to be sent down. But for his development, for Davis Schneider, the player, I think it would definitely be best if he did get sent down to AAA.
Yeah, Carter, and you know that I agree. We talked about this last episode, but there was a little bit of more quotes going on to, sort of what he thinks he needs to do better. I feel like I try to do a little too much when I'm up there. I just have to go back to what I'm good at, which is seeing pitches, working the counts, and swinging at pitches that I know I can handle. And that's exactly what we said, right? We talked about this. I'm not sure if this was on air or off air, but there's some pitches that come at the top of the zone, and he's swinging at those high fastballs because he's trying to hit them. He knows he struggles, and he's trying to get to them. But then they'll drop a curveball in the middle of the zone, and he's watching it. So, I think that goes back to him hitting the pitches he knows he can hit. Sometimes you're going to have to concede that high fastball if they're going to hit the zone and know you can't get there. But wait for that curveball that's going to be hanging. Wait for that middle pitch. And don't try to swing out of your boots. Just put something in play and try to get that average going. And that will drive up your confidence, which we talked about. And I know that, obviously it's easier said than done. We're not Major League Baseball players. But, somebody's got to say it.
Well, it's probably tough at the plate to have that in your head, that being like, oh yeah, they're probably going to attack me with a high fastball, but also not sit on it and wait for something at the bottom of the zone. It's all an approach thing. Obviously, with 2 strikes, you kind of have to be aware of that high fastball. But again, earlier in the count, why would you want to sit on a high fastball when you know you can't handle that pitch nearly as well as you can handle something lower on in the zone? So again, but saying that, you're a pitcher, you probably know that same thing. You're not necessarily going to offer Davis Schneider up a middle in fastball when you know that's probably the best pitch that he can drive. So it's all a mental game in the MLB. Obviously, he is aware of his weaknesses. He's aware of what he does well, but that's all public knowledge as well. Pitchers can see that, managers, things like that. So it's all game plan against Davis Schneider. He's going to have to work on some things in this offseason. For him, I think right now the offseason can't come quick enough. I think just with his success and what he's been doing at the plate recently. But with Davis Schneider, he'll take this offseason seriously. Obviously, he knows that his spot isn't necessarily secure with all this young talent. Again, we're going to eventually, with a lot of time that we have here, we're going to make our predictions for next year's roster. But obviously with Bo Bichette coming back, you have a bunch of guys that aren't necessarily playing every day already. You have Leo Jimenez, Stuart Baroa, Addison Barger, Davis Schneider, Ernie Clement. You have a ton of guys, Joey Lopervito, Will Wagner. All these guys aren't going to be able to crack your lineup day in and day out. So these guys are fighting for a spot. So for Davis Schneider, he's going to have to pick it up. Is that this tier? Is that next year's spring training? We're going to have to see. I think his spot will kind of remain open until next year. But for his confidence, for perspective from the fans, everything like that, it definitely would benefit him if he could catch at least a little bit of fire and have some productive at-bats as we get down the stretch in 2024.
Yeah, I agree, Carter. And I think we've been over this enough. I don't think we got to hammer it down anybody's throats anymore. Another quick thing I wanted to sort of say, I thought this was a little bit funny. Vlad traded a fan something for a Maple Leafs hat, it was. And of course, he was talking about how he wanted his own jersey as well, like Springer got. And sure enough, the Maple Leafs gift Vladimir Guererro Jr. his own hockey jersey after the whole fan interaction. So I thought that was sort of cool. They put up a picture about it online. It was nice to see, sort of just a cool little thing between teams of Toronto.
Yeah, that's my superstar, embracing the Canadian culture, embracing the Canadian teams. You don't see Bo Bichette doing that, that's for sure. Obviously, just not that big of a shot at Bo Bichette. But you go back to this, so that's all I'm going to say about it, is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. does little things like this where he expresses interest in Canada, expresses interest in staying in the country, and hopefully signing a long-term deal. You see what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is doing. We said it in the first podcast. Pay the man. He is a top 3 player in the AL. He's hitting the ball just out of this world right now. He's hitting it harder than pretty much anyone in the league. Just when he gets a hold of baseball, definitely fun to watch. Sign me up for the next 10 years of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I don't know. I don't think we can say it enough. Just pay the guy. Just pay him. Give him whatever he wants. Give him, I don't know, half the stock price of Rogers. I don't care at this point. Carter, and this is another long episode. We just apparently just can't keep them short. There's too much to talk about, too much information. What else do you got for us? I know you had a couple other things that you want to get out as well.
Yeah, there's a couple more things, but again, we have an episode tomorrow, so maybe we'll just save it for that. I think we can do like a double recap of the games tomorrow as well. Just again, because you look at it, 6-3 game. I said I was going to get into Ariel Rodriguez, but we didn't necessarily have time to do that, so we'll save that for tomorrow's episode. But thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, subscriptions. Everything has been awesome. Hopefully the Blue Jays can continue to win baseball games because I've had a lot more fun watching this team the last week than the last 3 weeks before that with them losing series, getting blown out by the Cubs, things like that. It's definitely a lot more fun to watch the Toronto Blue Jays win. But other than that, I guess we could talk about this. We are experimenting with this app. Obviously, you saw probably with our real stuff like that, a clip from the podcast. We're going to be trying to do a couple of more of those weekly, obviously, but we still want to get to you just some random like live videos as well. That'll be posted on Reels, TikToks, Instagram is the other one, I guess, and YouTube Shorts. So we'll still be coming at you with like the live Reels, things like that. We'll probably do player reviews, things like that as we get into the offseason. Big things happen. We'll still try to get your videos out, but be sure that you guys are looking for whether clip highlights from the podcast, whether it's clips that we make on our own time. We're going to be getting back in on that because I think a little bit subconsciously the Toronto Blue Jays are playing better baseball, and then we're kind of gotten a little bit revived here, actually having a little bit more fun watching the Toronto Blue Jays rather than them just playing abysmal baseball and us sort of being forced to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun making those. I was messing around with that new sort of app that we have. And it was fun today. I got to listen sort of back to like what we said about Davis, and it was sort of cool putting those together. So I know there's some people that don't stick around through the full episode or don't get everything. So putting little clips out that, maybe you missed or really highlighting a specific part. I'm going to try to do that sort of here and there if there's something interesting that we find that we talk about. But of course, like Carter said, we're still going to be doing, the live things because we, that's where we get to have a little bit of fun, go a little bit of nuts on there, have a little bit more personality, I guess, than even on the podcast that we probably already do. So as always, like Carter said, thank you guys a bunch. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It does really help us out. Make sure you check on Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan as well for all your MLB coverage after you listen to us, though. Make sure we're still that number first listen. We love being that listen, and we hope that you guys will continue to make us that. So again, have a good day. We'll be back tomorrow.